Have you ever wondered what happens after ever after? Have you always yearned to know if the end is really the end? No? Well, you're going to find out anyway, with your hosts Andi, Tami, and Gina. This is 2D Vision.
Hello everyone, welcome once again to 2D Vision, Disney Sequels Explained. I'm your host Gina, and today we have a very special guest with us. Before I introduce our usual other co-host, we're going to introduce our guest. This is Erin from the podcast Metamashina. Hi Erin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys today?
Oh, we're fine. We're really excited because we're very big fans of Metamashina, and we've said this to you already, but we really love your podcast, and we really are big fans of what you do over there. And if some of our listeners have not listened to Metamashina, you definitely should, because they have the most amazing commentary and discussions.
Oh, thank you.
And it's all from the female gaze. And sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you so much. We're happy you like this show, and I'm so happy that you invited me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay, we're really excited to have you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce the usual people you already know. Tami and Andi, how are you guys?
Hello everyone, I'm here as usual, prepared to talk about one of my favorite movies. And I'm really excited to have our first guest host in the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Hey Tami, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm equally excited. We've been looking forward to this, to being able to talk about Lion King 2 and Kovu, a very important part of the film. If I sound a little sludgy, it's because I overdosed on fudge 10 minutes ago, but I'm fine. I'll be okay.
Are you still sick though?
I am.
Oh yeah.
What? Really?
It's a problem. Working with high school kids, man, they're germ factories.
Yeah. They should wash your hands, people. If are any high schoolers out there, wash your hands, or your teachers are gonna get sick.
One of the tutors I work with actually passed out Clorox wipes to each of our pods, and you're clean your areas because y'all are gross. And I'm thank you.
Yeah, actually, I think it was yesterday, but in the place we're living, Gina and I, the weather just changed drastically. So now we're all. I think I'm fearful because I just know people are going to get sick, and I'm going to get sick, and but
it's really, getting sick season.
It's really cold outside.
Baby, it's cold. Okay, it's not that kind of podcast.
Wait, where are we?
Okay, so without further ado, I think we can go right into it. So I cannot express to you how excited I am about this episode. This is literally the episode that I was the most excited for. This is why we started this podcast.
Yeah, basically.
Because we weren't doing this to watch Belle's Magical World, of course.
Oh my god.
we were.
I still haven't seen Belle's Magical World, but have you guys? Are you guys going to cover the Christmas special?
We already have. Yeah, it was
really?
2-3 episodes ago. It was the one right before Belle's Magical World, and it's just so funny because they were released 2 years apart, and Belle's Magical World, which was the latest one, is the one that has the worst animation out of all of them, and the worst everything. They got progressively worse. It's just it's awful. Don't watch it. Just
listen to our episodes. It's really funny.
We literally said that on the episode. Don't watch this movie. Listen to the podcast. You'll get the gist of it, and you'll have more fun, and it won't be as painful, I guess.
But please, let's just go to talk about the better movie.
We keep mentioning Belle's Magical World, even in our everyday life. Andy and I were just oh, this is worse than Belle's Magical World. And the other day we were listening to this group, musical group live, and they were playing an accordion. And then he turned to me, and she was like, "Oh, it's the Belle's Magical World accordion." And I was like, "Shut up! Can we move on?" And yeah, it keeps haunting us. I can't. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to better things. We have the best thing right now. So if you don't know, guys, The Lion King, which is I'm gonna say that again. Today's episode is The Lion King 2, and if you guys don't know, The Lion King is actually my most favorite movie ever. Not even favorite animated movie, it's just my favorite movie, period. So I'm really, really excited, and I'm a really big fan of Lion King 2 as well. I grew up watching it, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna keep my thoughts to the end, and I'm gonna allow you to speak first.
Thank you.
So for Erin and everyone who's new to the podcast, we usually go through a round of our memories and our thoughts on the first movie. Just a very quick recap, just to know what everyone thinks of the original one. And then we move on to memories and our general thoughts on the second one. So we should start with that. Which one of you guys want to start first?
Tami.
You? Okay. Tami.
Yeah. So my memories of The Lion King.
Yeah, the first one.
Okay, the first one. Okay, if I'm gonna be honest, I already told Erin this, but I watched The Lion King 2 more than I did The Lion King, the actual Lion King. I actually didn't have an appreciation for it when I was growing up. There's not too many memories. I think I just was a happy kid that didn't like to cry. So when Mufasa died, I think I was just like, nope, I'm out. I can't handle it. So yeah, I think that was the problem. So I didn't really like it as a kid, but obviously I rewatched it again and I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, go Disney for the win. So yeah, I think it's great. I don't have any memories of it as a kid. I don't think I appreciated it. I wasn't mature enough or cultured enough as a 5-year-old to appreciate the beauty that is The Lion King. But it's okay. I'm better now.
Okay. Awesome. How about you, Erin?
I watched The Lion King frequently as a kid. I really like it. I think it's, a masterpiece. But I think the thing that sets it apart the most is probably the soundtrack. It's just so memorable and beautiful. The story itself is obviously Hamlet, but so I don't think the story itself is. Sorry, hold on. There's a plane. I'm gonna go on mute.
I hear it.
Awesome.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah,
it's an experience.
Sorry for my intermittent coughing.
It's all right.
It can be edited out.
Okay, I think I'm good now.
Yeah,
okay.
Awesome.
Okay. I was just gonna say I haven't watched Kimba the White Lion. It's a Japanese animated film that I've heard was possibly highly influential on The Lion King.
Yeah, I haven't watched that either.
Yeah,
I have no interest. Like, I know it's like a big controversial thing and there's a big debacle all over it, but like it's been like 30 years, guy. Can we move on?
Yeah, but overall, I love The Lion King, and I think it has a lot of rewatchability and teaches a lot of valuable life lessons, as these classic Disney films tend to do.
Yeah. Awesome. So how about you, Andy?
I think my experience is, I think, identical to Tammy's. I think I watched The Lion King too. I think it was one of the most watched movies in my childhood, but I don't have a lot of memories with the original. Of course I watched it, but not as much. I think I liked it. I don't remember a lot, sorry.
Okay.
Gina, is your turn. This is your Beauty and the Beast, go.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about The Lion King, of course. I actually grew up watching The Lion King 2 way more than the original one. Because I think the reason is because of Kiara. Like, literally, because if I had two movies in front of me and one of them had a female lead and I was a girl and the lead was a girl as well, then I was probably just going to watch that. So I think that was my reasoning, like, as a 4-year-old, to watch The Lion King 2 better than The Lion King. But, as I grew up, I have a lot of memories of The Lion King, but I'm just going to mention like the most crucial ones. So it was about in 2010 when I was kind of going through this rediscovering Disney phase, because I've always loved Disney, but in that moment of my life I had drifted apart from it, and then I came back, and it was mainly because of The Lion King. And suddenly I remember that it was a thing that existed, and I was like, oh, that movie, like, yeah, I remember it was good. I'm gonna pop it in, I'm gonna watch it. And it was like I had this epiphany, this magical moment in my life, and it just made me realize how much I love Disney, how much animation is just so beautiful, and I just loved every single minute of that movie. I was basically crying at the end of it, and that day literally changed my life, because that was the movie that made me realize I wanted to study film, and that now I'm a film student. So yeah, I'm basically here because of The Lion King, sorry. And yeah, so I don't know, I just love this movie so much. I love, like what you said, Erin, the music is fantastic. As soon as the movie starts and you hear The Circle of Life, like you cannot not be on board with it. And the animation is just fantastic. It has, the backgrounds look amazing. I love how the animations like literally drew so much inspiration from Africa, and they represent that like in the how do you say, the backgrounds basically. And the character animation is fantastic. The songs are so catchy. Elton John did an amazing job with the music, and Hans Zimmer as well. Hans Zimmer like went for it, and the song in the scene where Mufasa dies, that song, like it's forever stuck in my heart, because it's just so heartbreaking and it's so intense, and it's just the perfect setting for that scene. And yeah, I have a lot of memories with it. It just means the world to me. Like you cannot slander The Lion King in front of me, because I'm gonna go crazy on you. So yeah, it's just a movie that I hold very dear to my heart. And even though I kind of neglected it as a kid for its sequel, it just doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the world to me right now. So yeah, I kind of condensed that. I try not to go too off the rails, but yeah, that's my general feelings towards The Lion King.
I could hear the restraint in your voice.
Like I have so many things that I could talk about. Like I could tell you all my experiences in the park. And
she's ready.
She's ready. Like whenever I like feel like really like there was this moment in 2015 that was really depressing for me, and I watched The Lion King constantly because it was like this source of happiness and joy that had at the palm of my hand. So it was, yeah, it's just basically it all comes down to it. Like it really means a lot to me, and it makes me feel like amazing feelings, and that's just everything that I need in a movie, I guess.
Have any of you seen the musical?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So
kind of.
I have not.
It's amazing.
I mean, I have, but in Mexico
You were in
City.
the musical. You were in a musical.
Oh,
me,
Andy.
that was me. Okay,
Andy,
I will let
yeah.
you tell your experience and then I'll tell mine.
Oh well, it's just my experience is just that Broadway usually kind of gives license to Broadway and Disney give license to other countries to make their version, that representation of the musicals. So last year, no, it was 2016 when Broadway.
Was it 2015?
No, I think it was 16 or 15.
No, in 2016 you went to my house.
Oh yeah, it was 2015, right? It's been so long. In 2015, they had the Broadway version of The Lion King in Mexico, so it was in Spanish, and it was with Mexican actors, and it was it was not as big as the Broadway one, but it was still like a Broadway and Disney licensed version, so it was pretty official. But I have
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty good, and the actor that played Simba is like one of my mom's favorite singers. So like that was the reason that she agreed to take me with her. And it was awesome because he's in there like shirtless a lot. So my mom was having the time of her life. So it was really awesome. I one of my biggest dreams is to watch Lion King on Broadway, like in New York. That would be like the best thing, and I would cry my ass out. Anyway, Andy?
I think Tami has a similar story to yours because you saw it, right, Tami?
I saw it in the Philippines. It was an international Broadway cast, so I'm not sure if it was like Broadway, but it was like an international cast, and it was one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen, musicals I've ever seen. Like it was an experience. You need to see it, like for real on stage. Yeah, it's the scene where Mufasa's like ghost appears is like the best thing I've ever seen produced on stage.
The Circle of Life, and He Lives in You, like Shadowland. It's just fantastic. It gives me chills.
And then they have a song which is my favorite. It's called The Lioness's Hunt.
Oh yes, so it's my favorite too.
Just the dancing and the choreography of the lionesses and the actresses, and it's just the music.
Stage,
it's beautiful.
The actors on stage are amazing. They represent these animals so beautifully, and I love the person that gets to play Sasu, because they're basically just like they're in a suit and just waving this bird around. It's fantastic.
Okay, with my experience, I've never seen it. I never seen the play, but I actually made a I performed in a representation of that play in 2014. And it was with my local ballet academy back when I was in high school. But it was really fun. I remember it dearly because it was the whole play, and it had all the music, and that's when I discovered Shadowland and the Lioness's Hunt and all that stuff.
So which character were you?
I actually was one of the hyenas.
Which one?
I played
That
Bansai.
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I played. Yeah, it was really fun. It's one of the best experiences in my life. I go back whenever I want to remember a happy time in my life. I remember myself rehearsing for the musical, actually. And I was Bansai, the male hyena, the one that it's not Ed, the one that
That's
actually
not
speaks.
female?
Yeah,
The one that's not the female, the one that's not it.
yeah. Yes.
Wait,
It was-
were you the Whoopi Goldberg hyena?
No, Guppy Gold. I was the male one, like Guppy Goldberg's friend.
Did we take this dinner to go? No, why? Because there it goes. I just love that quote.
Okay, fun fact: I've never watched The Lion King in English, so I don't know the quotes for that one.
Oh wow!
But I do. I have seen The Lion King 2 in English, so we're good, I think.
Mexican problems.
Yeah. So we shall.
Yeah, we shall. Let's move on to.
That was a nice tour.
Yeah, that was a nice tour. So any of you guys have any more memories that they want to share or some thoughts? No?
No, not for me.
All right.
I'm all good.
Nothing from me.
All right, let's move on then to the main course. We're gonna talk, of course, about The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and it was a sequel released in 1998. Of course, direct-to-home video. It was animated by Disney's Australia studio. So, like, as what I read is that it was storyboarded in Burbank, like the original, like the official Disney animation building, but then it was shipped to Australia and they animated the whole thing over there. And basically, what I read on Wikipedia and IMDb is that this sequel was planned even before The Lion King was released. Like maybe not this specific sequel, but they were like, "Oh, we can make a sequel out of this movie." So it has always been in Disney's mind, I guess, ever since The Lion King was being made. But it was not until like 1996 that it was actually kind of like a real project that they brought Matthew Broderick in and the other cast. So it was also one of those. Basically, I think all the animated direct-to-home video sequels were made in basically 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. And yeah, so what do you guys think about this one? How did you ever watch it as a kid? What do you think of it? We should go in the same order, right? So, Tami?
Okay, so for this one, I do have fond memories of it as a kid, and I just remember like being 5 or 6, however old I was when it came out, and me and my brother, like almost every night, we would just cuddle on our parents' bed, and we would just lay down on our bellies and watch The Lion King 2 every night. And it's just like a really fond memory for me because it's something we did together, and it's something we enjoyed, and we were just sucked into the movie. And yeah, I really enjoyed it as a kid, and I have really fond nostalgic memories, which is honestly maybe why it was kind of a letdown rewatching it as an adult. Yeah, because it's obviously not the greatest. So I guess I know it's a Disney sequel, and I know I shouldn't have high expectations for it, but I think just because of my fond memories for it as a kid, rewatching it really is just like, set me back into reality. I mean, I still have those fond memories. I still hold on to those, but I can recognize the movie's not the greatest thing ever.
I would also add that it's hard when the first one is such a hallmark in film. You know, you can't help but compare the two in your head.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, I did enjoy that opening sequence. Like, not so much the animation, but the music. I love He Lives in You. Like, that's my favorite, one of my favorite songs ever.
Mine too.
Yeah, I remember when I would, like, work out, like, when I'm running, I would just, I used to play tennis internationally as a junior, as a teenager. And when I was, like, in Thailand, I remember I was, like, running to warm up for my match. And this played on my iPod, like, it was on shuffle. And it just got me super pumped up to, like, warm up and to run and to just, like, win my match. And I just associate that song with like winning and just and getting pumped up. And yeah, I love that song so much. And I was actually surprised. I don't remember it being the intro song to it, but when that came up, I was like super pumped. And then I got let down. But the beginning was good. I love the song.
But that sounds like such an experience. That is awesome.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's for me.
All right, how about you, Erin?
It's funny that you mentioned your brother, Tami, because my brother and I would sit on our bunk bed as kids and watch this together as well. And so I have fond memories of it in that regard. I remember watching it a lot, definitely, as a kid and really enjoying it. And I can't really pinpoint what I liked so much about it, but I am also in the same boat as you in that while I did really enjoy it as a kid, and I can still enjoy it now, I don't think that it has a lot of artistic value, as pretentious as that sounds. You know, you can enjoy a movie without thinking it's actually a quality film.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And so I think it's junk food, but I you know, it's the sort of thing that maybe I would put on in the background while I'm doing something else. I didn't actually think too highly of it this time around, which is sort of disappointing because I do remember liking it more as a kid.
Yeah.
All right. So, Andy?
Okay, so with the rest of the sequels or the sequels we have reviewed, my story was always kind of the same. Like, oh, I remember I watched this, and I kind of remember I kind of remember the original, blah blah. But this is the first one that I can say, okay, this was definitely one of my favorite movies. And when I rediscovered Disney, when I was about 12 or 13 years old, this was one of the first movies that I watched, so it was like a whole experience because I was watching it, and there were shots that reminded me of my childhood, and it was like kind of a catatonic experience, and I was wow.
You mean cathartic?
Cathartic. That's yeah. I think that is definitely not the word that I was looking for.
Yeah, I was like
cathartic.
That's so harsh.
Oh my god. Okay, kind of. But I do remember I loved it, and I remember I loved Kiara. Like you said, Gina, she was one of my favorites ever. And rewatching it again, I don't know if I can count it. I can count this as rewatching because this is one of the movies that I watch with frequency. Usually because of nostalgic value, and I can see what you say. This is mostly for animation by my part because I just see the animation and it's like just give this movie more money, and you could have like a really, really, well, not really, really, but like a quality movie. Like it's good, but the animation is kind of a throwback for me. Throwback. Yeah, and. But yeah, I do remember my childhood and this movie being in there a lot. Gina?
Well, I cannot be biased with this movie. Like, I feel like 90% of the time I spent watching movies as a kid was watching this movie. Like, even when I was rediscovering Disney, like I still remembered pretty much everything that happened in this movie. Like, it's ingrained in my brain. And I just love it. I love it to death. And like rewatching it now, of course, as a film student and as a 22-year-old, and of course the experience is completely different than when I watched it as a kid. And I can see maybe the problems with it that I never saw before. I think the main problem with the movie, basically, I think it's not the animation, but because it lasts only like 70 minutes. Mm-hmm. If it had been given more time, like maybe an hour and a half, and the script was a little tighter, yeah, I think it could solve a lot of problems because I think maybe the pacing is kind of weird, and maybe the romantic relationship in there, it gets kind of like rushed in and whatever. But I think for what it is, I have very fond memories of it. Kiara was just. It was my role model when I was a kid. Like I had the princesses as well, but Kiara, I counted Kiara as one of the princesses as well because I just loved her so much. And of course I loved Kowu. I think he's a fantastic character, and I just, as I said, I cannot be biased because this movie really shaped my childhood. And even I watched it pretty much by myself all the time. As I said in some episodes ago, I didn't have like close cousins or brothers or sisters that to watch movies with me, but I really enjoyed watching it by myself. And maybe this is why I have this really annoying habit of how do you say, like, memorizing the words from the movie, because I was alone. I was able to just rewind scenes that I loved, and I basically memorized the whole thing by the time I was already a grown kid.
I'm a witness. I
Yeah,
know that.
and so like I can quote this, and I can quote The Lion King on its entirety.
I can quote the Lion King, but because of the rehearsals, that's it.
Yeah, no, and it's fun. It's fun when I'm alone, but I realize how annoying it is when I'm with other people. So I try to contain myself. But I just love this movie. I love the music. I love, of course, it's not on the same level as the original, and it's never gonna be, because, as Erin said, like it's very unfair, I think, because it's not even like, it doesn't exist even in the same category as The Lion King, because The Lion King is basically a masterpiece of animation, and when you cut the budget basically in half and give it just an outside studio to animate it, of course it's never gonna compare. But for what it is, and based on the movies that we have already covered on the podcast, like, this is one of the best sequels. Like, I'm gonna go out and say it. I think for me this is the best, because basically because of nostalgia and how much it means to me. But I do think this one is like the one that makes the greatest impact in the lore of the original, and we're gonna cover that in length, like, later.
The Lion King lore is really interesting.
Lion King lore it's a mess. Like, not a mess, but it's really like, it's greater and it's bigger and more complicated than most people realize.
I don't think regular people would know there is a Lion King lore.
That basically, like, if you don't know, like, the cup that shows up in The Lion King at the end and Kiara are basically not the same cup.
Okay, so
And that's
Is this the brother?
yeah.
okay, but
The guy in the Lion's Guard?
No,
No.
No,
it's a different cup.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's a whole story with this, and I don't think we should cover it because it could fill a whole podcast on itself.
It's really interesting.
It's a really interesting thing. Like, Google it. The cup's name is Kopa, Kopa. And in a sum up, the story is that that cup gets killed by Simba and the outsiders, and that's why Simba is like so careful of them, and that's why he exiles.
This is so much more
them.
deep than I ever anticipated.
Yeah, and like,
Makes more sense as to why he's so pissed.
yeah,
goddamn.
exactly. Because if you know that bit of information and then you rewatch Lion King 2, there's this one moment. There's this one moment in The Lion King 2 where Sir's like, oh, if you want your pound of flesh, here you go, and he offers Kobu to Simba, like, go ahead and kill him. Like, I killed your cub, like, go ahead and kill mine. Like, that's your pound of flesh. And I was like, and like, once you know that, like, the whole tone of the movie and some of, like, the questions, like, oh, why is Simba so hard on Kiara? Like, they get answered. So
Yeah, I would say that, like, one of my criticisms is that Simba's characterization seems super inconsistent from how it was in the original film, and he's not really a like favorable character in the sequel, in my opinion. He's not fun to watch, but if I had known that his child was killed by Zira before watching that, it would completely change my lens in viewing it. But when you don't have that information and don't have that context, his behavior seems pretty outlandish in my opinion.
yeah,
Okay.
like, yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm not sure how canon that is right now, because with Cayenne and the Lion Guard, like, something's changed. But if you
Lion
Google
King
it, like,
lore discourse.
yeah, like, we could make a special episode on that, because I do think, like, it runs very deep, and yeah, so
We haven't even. Sorry, what were you doing?
no, go ahead.
We
Go ahead.
haven't even made the rundown on the movie yet.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did, but like, I just wanted to throw that out there because it's very, very interesting, and not a lot of people know it. And I think, like, as a Lion King fan, knowing that, it really makes the experience of Lion King 2 better, because, as Erin said, like, it explains some things from Simba's perspective mostly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick recap of the movie, and then we'll go and say things we didn't like and say the things we liked about the movie. So basically Lion King 2 is the story of Kiara, who is Simba and Nala's daughter, and she is the future king of the Pride Lands, and Simba is basically a overprotective dad of her, and he's always like, oh, don't go off the path I've marked for you, and don't do this, and don't go there, and don't go to the Outlands. And Kiara's like, I don't care what you say that, I'm gonna go to the Outlands because that looks fun. And she basically goes, she escaped, because Timon and Pumbaa act as her babysitters, but they basically suck at it.
Yeah,
so
I was
Kiara,
like, why did Simba choose them to be the babies? I understand, like, she's going on a hunt, and he's like, make sure she doesn't get into trouble or she doesn't get hurt. I was like, why send the pig and the meerkat? You've got like a horde of competent lionesses behind you. Why send these two? And I was like, is he sexist right now? Like, what's the problem here? Is it because they're guys? I know why they sent him, because they're the comedic relief and blah blah blah. But it just didn't make. It didn't even make sense to me as a kid. As a 5-year-old, I was like, why these two?
Little 5-year-old Tami like criticizing Simba's logic. I think it's because. Sorry, what?
No, I just repeated my thought. No, go ahead.
I think this is just what I just came up with, but I think Timon and Pumbaa basically live on the quote unquote castle, like they live on the high class of the nature. So basically, I think babysitting Kiara is the way that they pay or they earn their place at the king's side.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Okay, so Timon and Pumbaa suck as babysitters. So Kiara wanders off and ends up, of course, in the Outlands, where she meets a little cub named Kovu. And basically they get in some shenanigans with some crocodiles and they escape barely. Mm-hmm. And they basically form this like very quick connection because they just went through a near-death experience. And they're just kind of having fun with each other and not asking any questions. And then, of course, Simba comes out, and then Zira comes out. And they realize that they're in opposite sides of, like, not a war, but of some conflict that happened before they were even born. Basically, Zira is Scar's unknown mate. She was not.
Any thoughts on that?
What?
Because somebody said, and I was like, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's very weird that she doesn't get mentioned in the first movie. She was so important, but. Well, basically, she's Scar's quote-unquote wife, maybe. And her son, Kovu, she says, was chosen by Scar to be his successor on the throne. That was before Simba, of course, came back and threw him out. So Zira is very, how do you say, salty? I think the word is salty. Because she was basically... kicked out.
He is very salty.
I'm just like speculating about like Scar and Zira's divorce drama in my head now, wondering why she wasn't present and maybe why he was so salty in the first one.
Yeah, maybe like she's a tough woman. Like her character is like very strong. And so she's very salty because Simba threw them out, and she is convinced that Kovu is meant to be the king. So Simba is like, oh, Kiara, don't go near them ever again. And Zira, so basically they take each of their cups away, and they have a little lesson, a very different lessons for each of them.
Each of them gets a song.
Simba, each of them gets a song. Mm-hmm. That's a thing. Simba kind of teaches Kiara that, we all are one, and you're gonna have to be responsible once you become a queen, but we're not gonna leave you alone, and you're always gonna have us with you, and we're gonna guide you. And it's very fun and very sweet. It's a very sweet moment, I think. And then on the other side, Zira, Kovu, and her other children, Bitani and Nuka, are just in the Outlands, and it's all very deserty, and it's basically dead. So like, I don't blame them for being salty, because they're basically living in just nowhere with barely anything to eat or to drink. And Zira basically is like, you're gonna begin your training, Kovu, and she goes through this musical number where she just sings how delighted she will be once she kills Simba and once she takes over.
That is really dark.
It's a very dark music.
I love
number.
it.
There was this lyric. It was like, with Simba's daughters dying in my grasp and his lioness's mournful cry. That's my lullaby. I'm like, damn, girl.
She
And I
has
was like,
issues.
I watched this as a kid, and that didn't strike me as odd. I probably wasn't listening to the lyric, but as I listened to it, I was like, shit, Disney got dark
Yeah.
In the sequel.
in the
Like-
sequel.
The lyrics in Spanish are not that hardcore, but once I watched it in English, I was like, yeah, it seems kind of psychotic if you think about it. Like, what this song is saying is that she goes to sleep thinking and dreaming about killing Simba, his daughter, and everything that he represents. And that's her lullaby, just violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, growing up in that environment must have been hard for Kobu, and of course
Maybe a
to
little
Nuki
bit.
Bitani as well.
Maybe it's had.
Morning Reef raising.
He's been radicalized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he basically
basically.
has been. He basically grows up being taught to basically be a revenge machine, and that's everything that Sierra wants from him. He just wants him to be Scar's heir and take over and kill Simba and restore what she thinks is the natural balance of things, basically. And that's all he is to her. Like, yes, he is her son, but she just sees him as a revenge tool.
I do have a
And
question.
yeah,
Did they originally want him to be Scar's like biological son, and then they realized they wanted a romance? Like,
yeah, I think I read this somewhere that he was meant to be like Scar's offspring, but it was actually Michael Eisner out of everyone who was like, wait a minute, if you want to make a romance, then don't do this, because then it will be Kiara hooking up with her first cousin.
that's
once
Game of
removed.
Thrones shit right there. That doesn't belong
Yeah.
in Disney.
Yeah, I think that those were Michael Eisner's exact words.
Oh yes, Game of Thrones, the only lore that is kind of as complicated as the Lion King lore.
Yeah. Cut to, and it's the future now. Well, not the future. It's just a couple years later, and Kobu has become this very tough, very trained, basically brainwashed lion. And Sierra's like, oh, what's your purpose? And oh, I'm gonna kill Simba. And what's your destiny? And whatever, like this call and insert kind of thing. And it's very creepy.
And that is the scene where we all got confused. That is the one scene.
Oh, Kobu looks so good. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I said it. And in
The
Kiara's
voice has
part,
something to do with it too. I think it's Jason Marsden. He was like
Yeah.
my childhood.
it's Jason Marsden. He's also the voice of Max Goose.
Who from Spirited Away.
Oh yeah,
And
him as well.
I'm pretty sure the cat from Hocus Pocus.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
That's
I
interesting.
was wondering why I was strangely attracted to that cat.
That's a really attractive resume.
Yeah.
I was more of a Salem type of girl, but I get it. I get it.
Okay. So in Kiara's side of things, she has grown up and she's about to go on her first hunt alone. And this is the moment that Tami was talking about, that she goes off and she's like, well, she tells Simba, oh, Dad, you have to promise that you're gonna let me do this on my own, okay? And Simba's like, oh, okay. And then, of course, Kiara goes away and he turns to Timon and Pumbaa and he's like, follow her. and off they go. And, of course, Kiara discovers them. And she gets mad and she's like, oh, I'm gonna go my own way and I'm gonna go off the path and I'm gonna hunt somewhere else. And while this is happening, Kobu is trying to the plan that Sierra has is that he will befriend Kiara, and by
The term is seduce.
I don't think they use the word seduce,
But
It's implied.
That's
it
what
is implied, because I think Sierra gets the idea because when Kobu was a cub, he was like, oh, I'm sorry, mother, I thought we could be friends. And Sierra was like, friends? Oh, that's a great idea. Oh, wait, no, that's a great idea, son. And that's where she gets the whole idea for Kobu to kind of gain Kiara's trust. And by doing that, he will be accepted in Simba's pride. And then he will have the perfect opportunity to kill him once he gets him alone. And that's the plan. So the way they're gonna do that is they're gonna basically set fire to this part where Kiara is hunting, and once she's in danger, basically Kobu is gonna run up to her, save her, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, Simba, I saved your daughter, and you have to accept me into your pride now." And that's what happens basically. And Simba of course doesn't want to accept him because of what Kobu represents to him. But Sasu comes in and he's like, "Oh, master, the royal protocol says that all debts must be paid, and we certainly owe a debt to this young lion who just saved your daughter," basically. And Kobu's argument is that, "Oh, you can't judge me for a crime I didn't commit." So Simba is not happy, but he accepts. And now Kobu is in Simba's pride, but he's not allowed inside with the lionesses, which makes sense to me. And Kiara is just...
That scene was so weird to me. I was just like, does Simba have a harem? Is that what's being implied here?
It is.
He does. Yeah, that's
It's
how
implied.
lions work.
It's implied.
Is that how lions work, Gina?
Yes.
Explain.
It is. Basically...
Seeking resident lion expert.
The thing is, like, if a male lion is born, like, if more than one male lion is born, they're basically gonna have to kill each other for dominance, and like there cannot be more than one adult lion in the pride.
Oh,
So,
damn.
yeah.
That's why Scar was.
Scar was kind of part of the pride, so that was weird. But yeah,
So that was weird.
yeah. Anyway, so back to the movie. Kiara is very happy because basically her childhood crush just came back from the dead, and now he lives next door.
Oh, me. I want to be happy too.
And she just wants to get along with him, and he's like, "Oh, you suck at hunting. You would have died if I wasn't there." And Kiara's like, "Oh, really?" And she basically challenges him to train her, and so. The next day, it's very early in the morning, and Simba is out to basically drink some water, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Kobu wants to take the opportunity to kill him, but of course Kiara comes out of nowhere, and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna begin training now." And Kobu has to accept because he can be like, "Oh no, wait, I'm gonna kill your father, and then I'm gonna train you." Of course not, he can. Mm-hmm. And so basically, what happens is that Kiara gains Kobu's heart. Because by training her, there's this awesome scene. There's this awesome scene where they run into Timon and Pumbaa, and they're hunting for like bugs and worms or something, and they need help.
I believe the canonical term is grubs.
Oh, grubs! Yeah, thank you.
Get with the canon, Gina. Oh my god.
I'm sorry. The grubs, and they ask for Kiara's and Kobu's help because there's this bunch of birds that are hunting the grubs as well. And so for the fun of it, Kiara starts like roaring at the birds so they get scared away. And Kobu's like, "Wait a minute, what's the point of this training?" Aww. And Kiara's like, "There's no training, it's just for fun." And Kobu's like, "Fun?
What is fun? What is this you're talking about?"
And basically this is a scene that shows us that there's more to Kobu than just being Sira's revenge machine. And he's like actually gets to be like young and free for the first time because of Kiara, and of course that's why he grows fond of her. And they basically start forming this really cute relationship, and to make long story short, too late, they basically start falling in love, and Kobu regrets and he doesn't want to be part of the plan anymore. But of course once he's about to go come clean to Kiara, and Simba's like, "Wait a minute, I want to talk with you now," because Simba is trying to get around his feelings for Kobu because he realizes that it's unfair to blame Kobu for something that Scar did. So he's trying to come to terms with that. And he realizes, of course, that Kiara likes him. So he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go talk to this young man." So he takes him away. And they basically get, what's the word in English for?
Ambushed.
Ambushed, yeah. And Sira's like, "Oh, great job, Kobu." And he's like, "No, I had nothing to do with this." And Simba, of course, feels betrayed. And they chase Sira and the other lionesses, the outsiders, chase Simba. And basically, it's a very dramatic scene that ends up with Sira's other son dying. And it gets all blamed on Kobu for not
Can I
doing
just
his
say,
job. Yeah.
I hated this scene as a kid too because it's the whole conflict because of a misunderstanding trope, and that is like my most hated trope ever. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of people saying that when that trope bothered them since they were kids. Why do they keep doing that?
Because it's
I feel like psychologically it's not satisfying. It just doesn't seem like Nuka is portrayed as just this bumbling fool through the whole film, and he doesn't really know what he's doing or have too much of a mind of his own, and he's just sad and insecure and wants to be loved by his mom, and then he's killed for that. It just doesn't really sit right, for a death to sit right in a viewer's mind. It has to feel warranted, and I really don't think his was.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think that what bothered me was that it got blamed on Kobu mostly.
Yeah.
Not that, I don't know if he. I know that there is a deleted scene that it's more dramatic, and I think that is more satisfying. But it would have made the movie darker.
It's already so dramatic.
Yeah, but Nuka starts saying things like, "Oh, finally I got your attention, mother," and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" I think it's animated and it's in YouTube.
Yeah, you can find like the rough animation on YouTube, like for some of the later scenes of the movie, and it's basically it sets the tone a lot darker. So that's why they were cut.
Yeah. Continue, please.
All right, so Simba escapes, of course, and Sira blames Nuka's death and Simba's, how do you say, escape on Kobu. And she does the most amazing thing. She scratches Kobu and she gives him the scar basically.
The scar.
Get it? And now Kobu has nowhere to go because Sira doesn't want him anymore, and he tries to, and of course he doesn't want Sira anyway, so he tries to go back to Simba and Kiara and explain. And Kiara is like, okay, Dad, listen to him because maybe there's more to this. And Simba's like, no, I'm done, and I knew this guy was gonna be trouble, and he just proved that. He basically tried to murder me, and he exiles him in the most dramatic and fantastic song in the movie.
One of the best scenes ever in life, in any movie ever produced.
It's a fantastic scene. I don't care. Like, I'm sorry if I'm biased, but I love that scene. And even to this day, if you start singing it to someone, they're probably gonna start singing it back.
It's one of those Disney songs, and I think it's the only one.
Deception.
Disgrace, evil,
the
I think
sexy anti-hero scar that marks you for redemption.
Yes. Tuning Zuko, Kylo Ren, yeah.
What I wanted to say about this song is that I think this is the most known sequel song out of all of them. Maybe. Yeah, because it's, I don't know, if you start singing Mulan to one person, they will probably sing it back. But if you sing, I don't know, Enchanted Christmas to no. But if you sing this one,
probably a lot of people, maybe some people don't even know where it comes from. It's just like,
it's
just a known thing.
It's like brainwashing them from children. Watch me just go up to people and start saying, deception.
Disgrace.
Yes.
The disappointed zebra is the best.
I cannot, like, if you say the word deception, I cannot not say disgrace. Like, it's just a part of me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Iconic.
Yeah. So Kobu's exiled, and Kiara's very sad, and she says the most sassy thing she could say to Simba, and because Simba's like, he's following Scar's footsteps and have to follow my father's. And Kiara is just done, and she just yells at him, "You will never be Mufasa," and she runs away crying.
That is the scene that I remember most from when I was a child.
Yeah, because it was just like, oh, harsh, like, too soon, young lady, too soon.
Yeah.
And she runs off crying, and she basically escapes, and she tries to go find Kobu, and eventually she does. And they have this whole romantic song, and it's very cute and it's very emotional and blah blah blah. They get reunited, and Kobu's like, "Oh, great, Kiara! Now that we're together, we should run off and start a pride of our own." And Kiara's like, "No, wait a second.
Oh.
So yeah, I really like this about Kiara, that she's like very grounded, and she's like, we cannot just run off and pretend that we don't have a problem here. And Kiara just wants to go back and fix it, and she basically convinces Kobu that they have to do something, because if she doesn't, it's just gonna keep going and going and going. So now Simba and his lionesses and Sira and her lionesses are about to face off in a dramatic battle, and Kiara and Kobu run to stop it, and it's I really like this scene because basically they get in the middle of the battle. Not the battle, but between the two sides, and Kobu is facing Sira and Kiara is facing Simba, like basically each of them defending the other side. I just really like that. I really like the visual of that. And they basically give this whole speech of how Kiara gives Simba his speech back, like, I thought you said we are one. And she's like, oh, look at them, like they're just like us.
Stop being a bigot, Dad.
Yeah, basically that's what she said. Like, don't be hypocritical. And Kiara is trying to convince her dad to lay off the weapons and just make peace. Finally, after all these years of holding grudges and not letting the past go. And Sira is just not having any of it, and she attacks Simba, but Kiara gets in the way, and basically now Sira and Kiara are in this battle with each other, and it gets very dramatic. Then a river starts flowing, and Sira is like holding on the edge, and it's just very extra.
They did that.
And basically Kiara is offering her paw to Sira because, as I said, Sira is holding on to the edge to stop from falling to the water and the river and to a certain depth. And Kiara tries to hold her paw to her, and Sira doesn't take it, and she ends up falling anyway, and she dies. And then by the end, the Sira's lionesses just accept to join Simba's pride, and the ending of the movie is them having this, gathering, uniting the two sides. Kovu and Kiara get married, I think. I think that's what the scene is implying, because there's Rafiki, and he's like waving his stick to them.
Yeah, he did that to Simba and Nala as well, didn't he?
I don't
remember that. He did at the beginning to Simba, that's basically his christening.
Baptism, yeah.
Yeah. And he does that to Kovu and Kiara, and that's basically a wedding scene, I guess. And then Nala, Simba, Kiara, and Kovu roar into the other animals, and the movie ends with Mufasa saying "We are one," and then credits, and that's The Lion King 2. And it was a very long recap, but I don't know.
I think we made good commentary.
Yeah, we did. There's a lot to say about this movie. So, do you guys want to start with the things that you didn't like first? I want to start, but I want to end in a positive note. I don't want to end up saying the bad things.
Okay,
yeah, we can do it.
Okay, so do you guys want to start with the bad things? Tami?
Well, the bad things. For me, just personally as a whole, I did not find the movie super interesting. It's okay. It's just I wasn't really engaged in it in a film. I understand it's a Disney sequel. The writing's not going to be great. The animation obviously isn't going to be as good as well. But I don't know. Like I said, I think I was just hyped up for it because of how much I loved it as a kid, and I think that hype kind of just made it inevitable for me to not enjoy the film, the viewing, the rewatch as an adult. I think the story wasn't that great. I thought it could have been.
Not a lot happens.
Yeah, it was kind of boring, honestly, for me. It was
oh my
I
God,
was actually. Yeah, I'm so sorry. 5-year-old Tammy, but you had bad taste in movies. But it's fine.
You're speaking blasphemy.
I know, but yeah, I found it kind of boring. It's just a basic story,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It is.
I love Romeo and Juliet.
I do too, and it's I think it's good. I think for me it works that, the first one is based on Hamlet, and I think the second one, I don't think it was planned to be Romeo and Juliet. It just kind of happened. And
No, I think it was. I
don't know.
totally think it was.
And I just think it gives the whole trilogy kind of like some sub themes, and I don't know. I really like that Shakespearean take.
What Shakespeare play is Lion King 1.5 based on?
It's
It's-
how do you say?
It's a movie, and it's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Timon and Pumbaa, and those are the names of the two companions on Hamlet. And one of the things that happened in the play is that you never heard about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern again. And
They just appear once, and they're like, oh, and what are the names? I can't pronounce them.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And
Those
and
people are dead, and you never know what happened to them.
yeah, and that's the last line in which they mention them. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
I won't. So there's a movie about these two guys and on their perspective, and that is the take they went for in Lion King 1.5. So that is a nice piece of trivia
Yeah, you guys
that
know
I
your stuff.
collected by myself because that is nowhere in the internet. But I know my Shakespeare stuff, so
Yeah. So yeah, basically it's just, this one is basically Romeo and Juliet with lions, and not a lot happens because once the plot gets moving, and basically it's just Kobu's conflict between, what Sira has been training him to do, and he's developing feelings for Kiara, basically. And if you don't care for that, then the movie's just gonna be for you.
Yeah.
Tami, do you want to
Continue.
say something else?
Something bad? No, I think that's pretty much the whole gist of it for me. Just a bit boring, not memorable, bit of a letdown.
All right. How about you, Erin?
Sorry, I was on mute. So I guess what I would say, my first and foremost criticism is that I'm always not a fan of when evil characters are coded with a dark complexion, the way the lions are in this. I think that's bad subtext, and has some squicky elements. And I would also, and that's something that I think Disney has become a lot more aware of and has sort of corrected. God damn it, there's a plane.
Oh, she's gone. She's gone.
It's gone now.
I think she will not mute though.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that.
It's all right.
So I would say I think that's something that Disney and filmmakers have become a lot more aware of and conscientious of since the 90s. So you kind of have to take it for what it is in that time period. But that's something that I'm definitely critical of. I didn't like Nuka's death, like I said. I just don't think it really sat well with me. And then something else I would say is I just didn't really like how, I would say, so in any sequel, I think for it to be a valuable sequel, it should allow for character development and an expansion of the stories of the original characters. Otherwise, I think you're better off taking maybe an anthology approach as opposed to a direct sequel, because I actually did really like the new characters. I liked Zuko. I just said Zuko. Kovu.
I love it. I love it.
I liked Kovu. I liked Zira. I liked Nuka and Vitani, but I really didn't care for Simba, Nala, or Timon and Pumbaa in this one. I think Simba, like what we were talking about earlier, I think his character just doesn't make a lot of sense without the context of that murdered cub. I think that he kind of takes on this really, it seems like he's sort of forgotten the lessons that he learned in the previous film. He learned to be more loving and accepting, and I think at the end of the first one he tries to make peace with Scar, but it just doesn't pan out because Scar doesn't want it. And I'm saying that right? I haven't seen Lion King, the first one, in a long time. He does try to make peace with Scar at the end, right?
Doesn't he try to kill him?
I thought he tried to save him.
And then the thing what happens basically is that Simba gives him the option of running away and just go live your life somewhere else, and it's just because Scar is like no and starts fighting him.
And then
that
attacks
he ends
him
up
and then throws him over the cliff.
yeah. Yeah, so that's how he ends up throwing him off the edge, and the hyenas end up like eating him. So it's not really that he wanted to make peace. He just gave him the way out. Like I don't want to kill you. Just go. And this guy just didn't accept it.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is I think Simba was more merciful towards the end of that one, and then in this one he just becomes very hardline and takes on this us versus them. They're different than us, like mentality. And I also didn't really like how Nala doesn't really receive any screen time except to nag Simba. You know, she's only there to be the complaining wife that's keeping him in line. And and while she was stern with Simba in the original, she had a lot more character to her. And then I also just think like Timon and Pumbaa's humor became really slapstick to the point of it just wasn't really clever. It was pretty gimmicky and relying on the things that had made them lovable characters in the first film, but it was gimmicky in my opinion. It didn't actually expand upon what made them funny in the first place.
That happens a lot on the sequels that we reviewed. This happened in Pocahontas 2 as well.
And Beauty and the Beast. Like all the side characters, like they don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So they're just like, make them say funny things, and it just doesn't land ever.
The last thing I would say is just that, sorry, I sound so salty, but I would say that, like Simba is so incredibly patriarchal, you know, and he's just like, I'm going to keep my daughter in line. And for the most part, Kiara is forced to comply with this and just sort of treated like a cattle between him and Kovu, you know, like the story just seems a lot of times more to be like Kovu and Simba's story than it does Kiara. She seems to be sort of a proxy for the conflict that the two of them need to resolve, as opposed to so much of an autonomous character in herself, in my opinion.
That's very interesting. I had never thought about that way. Because, I mean, I think for me, I've always seen it like, I have seen it as Kiara and Simba's story. I do think that in the end, Kiara teaches him a lesson, and I kind of like that. But definitely, I think
I agree.
There's a lot like what you said. I think there's a lot that we could go and talk about, because I do think that the main conflict basically is between Kovu and Simba, and this like unspoken hate they have for each other because of Scar, and that's the conflict that needs to be resolved basically. And Kiara is basically just there to be the problem solver. And so yeah, definitely see where you're coming from. Okay, so Andy, do you wanna go next?
Okay. I am completely biased. I am so totally biased. I don't have a lot of complaints about this movie, actually. Of the things you guys said, I actually hadn't thought about them, and that is really weird. And this is really strange for me, because I'm a film student and I am really harsh with movies, and not as much as other people from my area are. But I do always have a critical eye in everything, and I notice, okay, so this is nostalgia, and this is cheesy, but I like it, okay. And I think this happens with this one so much that I just put it on and I enjoy it thoroughly. And I think that my biggest grudge is with the animation, and that is... The animation is not bad if you look at all the other sequels, but I don't know.
Well, it's always really sad, because it does happen with sequels, you know, with pretty much every direct-to-video sequel, I would say, you know, they just expect such budget cuts, and that's, you know, it's obviously for a reason. It's because studios are trying to milk these franchises without actually investing so much, but But it's really tragic when you have such beautiful art in the initial installments of films. You know, like on Metamashina, we covered Land Before Time, and like Don Bluth's original Land Before Time was just gorgeous and like a hallmark of its time in animation. But like all the direct-to-video sequels are just so much more subpar comparatively, and it's hard not to be disappointed, even though like it's disappointing for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Erin, if you listen to our other episodes,
it's the same thing.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, we have a complete podcast about this, and yeah, I remember when I had VHSs and like cassettes, and I remember commercials and trailers for Land Before Time 17 or something. I don't know if I remember, if I hallucinated that, or how many
City
sequels
are there?
I think I had to look this up recently. I think there's 14 or 15.
God.
There's a ton.
How do you do that? Wow.
Like, how do you even come up with more stories to tell? Like, I have probably seen the original one and maybe one of the sequels. I have not seen the others. Like,
It got so crazy. It was like alien invasion in the Great Valley.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I think Ice Age is going that direction.
Oh god, no.
I think I kind of want to have a Land Before Time marathon now.
Oh no.
Just to see that. Like, I need to see that with my own eyes.
Oh.
Okay, but coming back on topic, you're making really good points, and I do agree that of course the animation and the story won't be that tight and that good, because okay, it's just 2 years of production and it's home video, and you just have to milk the franchise as fast as you can, right? But I think I give this crew and this movie a lot of credit, because they managed to create something that is actually kind of meaningful, with these constraints, and the other teams didn't do that with the other sequels. So
Yeah, I really think this is one of the best Disney sequels.
Yeah,
in
I
my
think
opinion.
it's just, you can see that there was some effort made, and that's more than you can say for so many of the others.
Yeah. Okay, but we were talking about bad things. I do have a complaint with Simba, and if I didn't know,
Can I speak to the manager?
I have a complaint with Mr. Simba. Yeah. And yeah, because they just made him the typical helicopter father, and this is like a common thing when protagonists have kids, apparently.
Yeah.
At least in Disney sequels, we will talk about
Ariel.
The Little Mermaid 2 later. Yes. We will get to that.
Lady and the Tramp.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that doesn't match their characters at all, and they just do that because they have to have conflict, and they don't know where to get it, because they have 2 years to complete the whole movie. So I wish Simba's character was better, and I do have like a little background with the things that we said before about the cop and that stuff, but that stuff it's not entirely canon.
You're not supposed to know.
Yeah, in a movie, it's a movie, so that you just have to be it has to be satisfying on its own. That is my biggest concern about the storytelling. I actually don't think it's rushed. I don't know why, but I actually think the pacing is good, and I think, I don't know, they had Cobb and Kiara, for me, they have chemistry since the beginning. So that is not my complaint. I just think, okay, it's totally natural that they fall in love. I think that it totally, it makes so much sense. So that's why I don't know, I'm a sucker for this kind of stories about star-crossed lovers and enemies to lovers and both sides. Yeah, you know that about me. So of course, I mean, this was the first couple that I shipped. Let's say, quote unquote, shipped. So of course I was going to grow up loving enemies to lovers tropes. Oh my, like, please. Yeah.
That's
I
cute.
can find more complaints. I actually can't. Gina.
Okay. So I'm biased as well, of course. I think if you ask me any other day, I'm gonna tell you, no, this movie has no flaws. Shut up. But of course, I need to put my objective cap on and be like, okay, no, okay, there are a bunch. I think for me the animation is not a problem. I think the animation is pretty fantastic, especially in direct to home video, level.
It's really good for that.
I think what it's lacking is depth. Yeah, I mean in the backgrounds. I think the Lion King, the color palette is weird, but I think it's darker, and I don't know, maybe that's on purpose. But I do think that, I mean, The Lion King has some amazing landscapes, and it just, you can feel the depth. You can feel yourself in nature watching that movie, and it just doesn't happen for this. I think the budget for animation went straight to character animation, and the
characters are really good.
The characters look amazing. I love. I'm gonna go into what I like later.
Okay,
but I do think that the landscape and the depth of the field is lost, and you basically don't feel the same. How do you say? You don't feel involved in the universe.
You don't
the movie.
feel the same sense of scope and scale that you do
exactly.
with the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, you just look at Pride Rock and it just does not feel the same. It doesn't feel as big. It doesn't feel as majestic because it just can't. There's just this one shot in We Are One where Simba kind of looks back to it, and you can feel how big it is, but basically because you're on Kiara's eye level and Kiara's like so little, so it looks bigger. So I really like that shot. But aside from that, Pride Rock really feels like less in scale, and the whole thing is. But I think that's because it just doesn't have the budget for it, so I cannot really pin it on the movie per se, because that's just what they were given, and for what they were given, they did some pretty amazing stuff.
You have a big standard. You have The Lion King, one of the best animated movies ever, and then you have to compare it to this one. It's not fair.
Yeah, it is. It's just really not fair. And they pull through. I think if they were gonna do a sequel, I think this is the least that they could have done, and that doesn't absolve its mistakes and its errors. So I do think there's some pacing issues. It's not that I don't buy the romantic relationship. I totally do. Like, if I bought John Rolfe and Pocahontas from Pocahontas 2, I of course bought, because they meet as children. They have a connection that goes back. So once they meet each other, like once they're adults, you buy it because they have this like very pure connection in the beginning before they knew they were supposed to be enemies. So yeah. But I do think the pacing is an issue because the whole thing with Kobo and Kiara basically happens in one day. And by the next day, Kobo wakes up and he's rehearsing what he wants to say to Sira, and he's like, not to Kiara, sorry. And he's like, oh, sorry. He's not saying this to her directly. He's rehearsing it, and he's like, Kiara, I had this plan to kill your father, but I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that anymore because I love you. And when he says that, he just looks to the ground and he looks so hurt, and he's so dramatic. And the romantic part of me lives for it because it's like, oh, it hurts, but it hurts so good. But
I think the space-time continuum. I was just gonna say the space-time continuum flows differently in Upendi.
Oh, that makes so much
That's
sense.
a fantastic
Erin,
pulling through. Yeah. I do believe that. I mean, in that scene, Rafiki feeds Kiara and Kobu like these really weird fruits. So maybe we don't know what those are.
They're definitely aphrodisiacs.
That's so funny.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. No, this movie just got better.
So much better.
I don't know if you. Okay, I will not say that.
What were you gonna say?
I think one of the animators, or is this me imagining things? But I think they said in that part on the original, in Can You Feel the Love Tonight, when Nala gives Simba the eyes, they were.
No,
I
shut
think
up.
that was
No,
I think
you're
that.
being so rude in this podcast.
No, but no. Wait, I don't know if I'm getting my movies confused.
Yeah.
Or was that in Lady in the Tramp?
I think you mean Lady and the Tramp when they like slept.
Okay.
I
I was confused. I'm sorry. I apologized. I am apologizing.
Get your ducks and your lions straight, Wendy, please.
I'm sorry.
Those were very sexy eyes, though. Not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
they were.
Yeah, Nala.
She wanted it.
She got it.
She got it.
She did get it.
We have the sequels to prove it.
We have Kiara.
Yeah. What was I saying? The pacing.
Okay, Kobu was saying I love you.
I do think later with the good things, but I do feel like Kobu's desperate how do you say, confession of love comes like way too
early?
too not early but rushed. Like if they would have showed us like a montage or something that showed you like some passing of time, maybe I could have bought it, or I wouldn't have as much an issue. But the thing is that Kobu has time not on his side, because Sira is literally like stalking him, waiting for him to kill Simba, so he doesn't have the time to I don't know, fully process what he's feeling. So he's just like, okay, I love you and I need to stop this right now. So I kind of get it on that part, but that's still, in a storytelling perspective, that it does feel rushed. And yeah, it's kind of hard to buy, especially if you're not into romantic, I don't know, stories. And I'm having the hardest time coming up with more things that I don't like.
You don't need to.
And no, I do think, because when I was watching, I was like, okay, I think the Timon and Pumbaa thing is actually an issue as well, because as I said, I don't think they know what to do with them. And
they have some funny lines though.
They do have some funny lines because you know the same voice actors come back. And so they of course give their best. It's like when Robin Williams came back to play the genie in King of Thieves. So you know he was pretty much useless in that movie, but he was still very funny. And that's what happens with Timon and Pumbaa as well. They're pretty much useless, and they don't do a lot. And I have to say, it's not as annoying as Miko and Percy were in Pocahontas.
No, because they didn't speak and they were totally slapstick.
It was so, yeah.
It was
definitely.
cartoonish Looney Tunes style.
Yeah, and this one
Not the good ones.
they have some better moments. I do like I'm crossing over to what I like, but I do like that scene at the beginning when Kiara falls into this little lake and Pumbaa goes after her, and Timon's like, "What am I gonna tell Simba? We dropped a warthog on her," and he's like, "Pumbaa, let me define babysit."
I remember we laughed a lot.
I think they are funny, but they just don't get a lot to do. And
that scene cracked me up as a kid. Like I loved it.
Or the one when he's the confrontation is happening and Timon is like, Pumbaa, hold my tail or something.
Oh yeah. No, let me at him, and Pumbaa like lets him go. It's like, no, you have to hold me.
Like I don't think you understand the concept.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They are funny. They just don't
fit.
They don't need to be there.
Yeah.
Simba should have just retired them to their old like paradise home and be like, okay, you go, and I'm gonna be king from here, and I'm gonna come visit on Christmas or something.
Oh, to his gay dad. Yeah. And
good. I think that's all I can come up with, because I didn't even have a problem with Simba, because I do feel like he's different and he's not handled that well, but in my heart I kind of want to understand, because once you have children, I think you change and you see
That's true.
the world in a different perspective. And I do, even without the killed cub storyline that you can take as canon or not, even without that, I can see Simba being protective of Kiara and like not knowing what to do with those feelings, because you know what he says in the beginning is something like, yeah, we got in a lot of trouble when we were children, and I don't want that for my daughter. So I can understand that on that part. But I do think that he hits a little bit too much. Like maybe it could have been more nuanced. It could have been more subtle or something, like more just to watch Simba struggle with that feeling of, I want to protect my daughter, but I don't want to overpower her. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Then again, this movie is 70 minutes long.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It was 2 years to
That's what I was saying. They needed to kind of make the plot move along, because they didn't have that much time, and they needed to focus more on Kobu and Kiara more than anything. And so I think that's why Simba suffers, and that's also why Nala suffers. Like she's basically like three scenes.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when Kobu joins Pride, when she tries to convince Simba to like give him a break, and then at the end, in the big battle, so she basically gets like 4 scenes and like barely like 3 or 4 lines of dialogue, so she doesn't get a lot to do, and yeah. So yeah, I do think that the way they treat their original characters suffers, but in the other hand, you get new characters that are very interesting and very fun to watch. So with that said, let's move on to what we did like. How about you go first, Tami?
Well, you mentioned this earlier, and I just remembered it because you mentioned it, but I really liked Kiara's character. I think that's probably why I liked The Lion King 2 more than The Lion King, because I had a female character to look up to that was spunky, that stood up for herself, and just stood up for what she was right and what she believed in. And I think that was just refreshing to watch at that age, because representation is super important, and I think it's important to like be able to see powerful women in media.
Yeah, she even stands up to Kobu. Sorry.
What did you say?
Like, she even stands up to Kobu
exactly
when
yeah,
he
she
saves
doesn't
her.
take shit.
Yeah, when he saves her, she's like, "What are you doing? Like, why did you do that?" And he's like, "I just saved you," and she's not taking any of it because, like, how dare you? So yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So,
like
yeah,
that she doesn't have everything all figured out either. She's kind of learning along the way.
That's a good point. And then she like shares what she learns to everyone around her. It's like, we can be better than this.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I really
especially
like
her dad.
Well, yeah, her dad, because he needs some lessons.
He does.
But yeah, I really liked Kiara, and I really liked the music. I loved He Lives in You. I think I listened to My Lullaby over and over again as a kid, and I just realized how messed up it was today. But yeah, and I loved Upendi. Like, I was obsessed with that song. It was just so happy and just super lighthearted, and I just love listening to that. And I think the music is really well done. Like, of course it's not amazing, but I enjoy listening to it. What else? I mean, Kobu, I fell in love with him as a kid, obviously. Like, everyone did. Like I told you, my roommate, who also isn't super into Disney, like, admitted she was in love with Kobu, and he may have been a subject of a topic when we got drunk one time, and it's fine. I have it on video. I can send it to you later.
Please do that. I cannot believe you have held that from us so long.
We've known you for years, and until now, just now.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Kobu's a great addition to the Disney canon. He confused many of the 5-year-olds.
Why am I attracted to a lion?
Yeah.
That was me.
Maybe even caused a few furries to develop.
Oh, we went there.
Full disclaimer: at least I'm not a furry.
No,
I don't know about you.
On this podcast, we just kind of have a lot of feelings for this animated lion. We're not furries though.
We're not furries.
We're not furries. I promise. Our new motto.
We need to make a shirt of that.
Oh,
Yeah, we're always disclaiming that on Metamashina.
Oh my god.
We're not furries. We just really want to have sex with dragons and monsters and creatures.
And fishmen.
Because they treat us nicely. They treat us more nicely than regular men.
I love that discourse. Like, whenever that comes up on your podcast, I just love that. I live for it.
That is my favorite part.
It has made me realize, like, I have been trying to deny this, like, from myself, but I do kind of have those kind of feelings as well.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. We're making you feel right at home.
Yeah, with the monster fucking discourse.
Oh my god.
Oh, I mean, I didn't say that.
Dilemma.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh, Kobu, what have you done?
I'm 8 years old. Why am I feeling these things? Mom.
Oh my god.
Mommy.
Okay.
I mean, he has that scar.
He does.
Every character that has a scar and a dark past story,
and the dark past and a conflicted soul,
and that is head over heels over a girl that
has like a path of evil marked for them, but they don't want to follow. I live for those kind of character.
And you don't understand why I love this movie, okay? Because it has one of this kind of characters, and it's a Disney sequel.
Yeah, because Kobo's a fantastic character. I'm gonna go right and say yeah, he's cute. Yeah, I confused a lot of young girls. Like, why are we attracted to a lion? But on the other side, I don't know if he's that deep, but at least he's interesting. He's conflicted. You understand his dilemmas, and they went to trouble. Sorry,
An anti-hero. And
he's an anti-hero.
they decided to take a little bit more of a bold turn with the protagonist trope.
Love interest. Yeah,
protagonist character. Yeah.
And they went to the trouble of giving him a personality and a past and something that he needs to work within himself and with his family and the people around him. And I do think that's so interesting for a sequel to do, with a new character. He's not even in the first movie, but he's a strong character, and I just really like that about him. I think, I don't know, he's a very, I don't know, he's just very interesting and complex in my eyes, and I just really love Kobo for everything that he represents. And yeah,
I think that having him as a cop and as a fun-loving kid, it creates sympathy for him as well.
Yeah, definitely, because you can see the way that he was, his natural state, basically. And there's this deleted scene that, of course, it was cut from the movie, but basically it was Kobo right after he meets Kiara, and he's playing with a butterfly, and he just lets the butterfly go, and Sirius like, why didn't you kill it?
Aww.
You're supposed to be the next king of these lands, and if
Sirius
you
got her
need
priorities straight.
Yeah.
Kill that damn butterfly. Don't be a
So he
disgrace. Shit,
yeah, he basically
get it right.
This deception. She gets so mad because she's killed the butterfly. He just lets the butterfly go, and of course, this as a child, this is very traumatic. He grew up in the most toxic environment, and he still came out to being a good guy after all.
I'm soft.
I really like that. Yeah.
Tami, sorry, you were saying.
Totally
You're fine. I think for me, the last thing I liked was the ending, because you know how I hate the misunderstanding, a conflict because of a misunderstanding. I like how Kiara wasn't like, oh my god, you betrayed me, blah 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 blah. She just she stuck to her man, and she was like, she was like, I know him, and he's not like this, and y'all are wrong, and I'm gonna prove it. And I was like, yes, okay, I like this.
Yeah. After the Aladdin trilogy, this is kind of refreshing.
I didn't know Aladdin was a trilogy.
It is. Unfortunately.
I mean, it has a good one and a really bad one. So just watch King of Thieves and you'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't need the second one. Just you only need
the second one is Iago the movie, and that sounds like it's so unappealing. It's called Return of Jafar, but Jafar is just there for 5 minutes. And Iago gets two songs and a complete arc.
Iago the movie.
He has 2 songs.
Yeah. It's not worth it. But watch King of Thieves. That one has a good plot. That one has a good new character. And Robin Williams is back. So, yeah.
Nice. You should definitely check out that new character. Okay.
Okay, but yeah, that was
Is it a hot villain with a scar?
No. But he's a hot dad without a scar.
But Kasim. Thank God for Kasim.
Good old Kasim. Yeah. We thirsted about him in that podcast.
And now we're choosing over Kobo. History repeats itself.
Yeah. That's just television. That's why we're here.
And then we thirsted over Rolf and Pocahontas too.
Kinda, but he was more kind of a good guy and he was cute, so we didn't thirst over him.
Tami, did you?
Okay, you were saying.
Yeah, no, that was my last good one.
Okay.
That she stuck by him.
Yeah.
I agree. Erin?
Yeah.
Sorry, waiting for this plane to go away.
Oh.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say that Kovu has a daddy kink.
What?
I love the scene where he's
Explain?
he's like, bet you do everything daddy says. Bet you're daddy's little girl. And I was like, wow, sounds like you want her to be your little girl.
Okay, can I say that when Gina and I were watching this movie and they said daddy, I told her I'm not comfortable with that word.
Yeah,
and she
I
was
am.
like, but she's a child and she's talking about her father, her actual father. And I was like, that word is just
It's
it's
been
done for
corrupted.
me.
It's been so
It's corrupted.
It has.
I will
Yeah.
I will never.
Maybe not in
listen to that word.
1998. Yeah, it
Okay,
has.
listen.
Normalize daddy.
That was young
No,
Kobu. That was
no.
Cup Kobu. If adult Kobu would have said those lines like, I bet your daddy's little girl, I would have had a complete different experience as a child. And as an adult, I would be like, yes,
Yes.
I am, and what about
That's hilarious.
Yes, I am that.
I bet your daddy's little girl I can be.
I can be.
Oh my god. Oh, okay.
This is a serious podcast.
Is it though?
You have to say that every time we record.
Yeah. Okay. If we have to say it, maybe we're not.
Shh, they don't know that.
Okay.
Sorry, Erin, you were
You
saying.
were saying?
Sorry, plane. Give
How
it
many
5 seconds.
planes a day pass by your house?
Oh, so many. It's constant.
Do you like
see.
get used to it, or are you like constantly thinking?
Oh,
about
yeah.
planes?
I'm totally used to it. It's just frustrating with recording.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah, I would also just say that I really liked the resolution of Kiara attempting to save Zira at the end. I think, obviously it paralleled the scene with Scar and Mufasa in the gorge, and you sort of have this sense of like generational forgiveness where Kiara sort of writes things and says, I think through this scene, it's Simba's pride forgiving Scar's pride for that atrocity that was committed in the first one. And, I did think it was interesting that Zira just sort of let her bitterness poison her and opted not to take Kira's paw and be saved. But I thought that was a really great parallel scene. And I also really liked the scene where Kovu, I almost just called him Zuko again, where Kovu is.
I love it. Please do that. Call him Zuko. I don't care.
Where Kovu is being berated by Zira for his failure. I think that scene has a lot of emotional stakes, and I really liked seeing him go through this conflict of trying to do the right thing, but also be there for his family, and just the hurt he experiences in having his mother blame him for his brother's death. Yeah,
That's so harsh.
yeah, I did really like him, and I liked Zira too. I mean, I think you see a lot of sort of vengeful woman tropes sometimes, and a lot of times they don't work that well. But in this one, like, you can really see that she's very pained and she's very bitter. And there are women who are very pained and very bitter and vengeful. And, I think that she was sort of empathetic in a sense, despite being a terrible person. You could see that it stems from years of betrayal and hurt. And so I did think there was a sense of empathy about her that I appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like the scene where they're trying to make peace, and everyone has basically turned their side. I mean, Zira's lionesses have turned on, not on her, but they have joined Simba at this point, and Zira's the only one left. And I think it's Simba who says to her, "Come on, Zira, let go of the past." And Zira's like, "No, I will never let go." And like, just the way she says it, and you just understand that she's just committed to that pain. It just has been eating at her for so long, and she's just not.
She doesn't know any better.
She doesn't know any better, and she's not forgetting. She refuses to forget Scar, and it's very sick, and it's very like not evil. Well, yes, evil, but it's very wrong. But you understand her, so yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
That's all I got.
All right. Okay, so Andy.
I love a lot of things about this movie. Like I said, I was talking about the bad things.
In this essay, I will.
In this essay, I will. I was talking about the bad things, and all the good things came up just naturally. So I really like the new characters, and I do think they are some of the strongest characters that we will see throughout this series, these podcasts. Yeah, in the sequels. And not just for Kobu and Kiara, but I also like Bitani, and I also like Sira.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
We
love
haven't
her.
talked about her, but she's awesome. She's Kobu's little sister. Well, kind of. She's Sira's daughter, and Nuka. Nuka is kind of annoying and kind of a goofball, and he's I don't know, he's kind of an outsider inside the outsiders. But Bitani is kind of this kind of rock punk lion that
She has like
She's like the one who should have
Eyeshadow.
been chosen. She should have been the
Yeah.
chosen one.
that's I was about to make
a case for that.
I was about to make like a kind of a parallel, because I don't know why when I was watching it I was reminded of Cersei Lannister or something.
Wow.
I was like, imagine if she was the chosen one. By Scar, they would have killed Simba
she would have
when
killed
she was
Simba.
a cub.
Yeah.
When she was a cub, and
Oh my god.
yeah, and she has like this eyeliner. I don't know where she got it in the Saban.
I think it's supposed to be
It's
like
very fierce.
yeah. I think it's supposed to be like how do you call like when you haven't had enough sleep and
Like
you're
eye
like,
bags?
bags under your
Yeah.
bags.
I think that's supposed to be it. But yeah, it just looks like eyeshadow.
Yeah,
I just
And
thought
she
it was
has,
like fall '98 haute couture.
I know, and she has bangs. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got a
And
great
when-
aesthetic.
Yeah, I think I like her because of
She's
her
very
aesthetic.
sassy and like I think she's not the youngest. Kobu's the youngest, but Nuka is like so older than her, and she just gets on his level, and she's like, "Oh, mom is gonna be so mad at you," and she's just so sassy to Nuka. She's very fun.
And when Sira is singing her death song, she's rocking it. She's
rocking
She
it.
says
feeling it.
testify. That was the best part. Testify. Preach, Mom.
I love this
God.
moment. Okay, sorry, I'm taking from your time, Andy. But I love this moment in my lullaby, and I don't know what Sira says. It's like I can hear them. I can hear them singing. Come on, what a guy! And Vitan is like so like into it, and Nuka is just like, oh, what a guy. I love that.
Isn't that what the genie says in Aladdin? And he's in the same position, like Jafar.
Jafar. I don't know
Jafar.
what he
Oh,
says
what
in
a guy.
English.
Jafar, la 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 la. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like direct.
I don't know, but it's funny to
Reference,
think.
but it's very funny.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, continue.
Yes, and I actually like. Okay, I'm continuing my Bitani discourse, and I will stop. But then at the end, and when Kiara offers that, okay, that we can all become just one pride, and you can come with us, and Bitani is like,
She's the first to turn.
yeah, she is the first to turn.
Basically, I think, or one of the first, or like
Well, she's
when
the most
she
important.
She's the most important because once she does, Sira has nothing left,
Yeah,
and so
Basically.
she's like, "No, mother, it's enough." Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it,
I like
it that's badass. And okay, outside of that topic, and like Tami said, I love the music. I actually think I love all of the songs. And of course, not one of us is one of my jams. I think it's on my top 5 Disney songs. Really, it truly is. It's just amazing. And He Lives in You is actually on the Broadway musical, so that's going to be awesome.
Do you want to talk about Hans Zimmer? And
Okay, yeah. I was going to talk about it in like 2 other points of when we were talking, but I couldn't. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Hans Zimmer was also the composer for this sequel, which is awesome. It's really weird, and that he came back. When Kiara is on her first hunt and they set fire to the land, did you hear something familiar? Guys? No?
No.
if you watch that scene again, pay close attention to the music because you will definitely recognize a song, a very famous song from Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's literally the pirate.
It's like it's not the same arrangement, but the same notes are there. And like if you listen closely to it, you will definitely feel that the
same eighth
That's there. Like wow, Hans Zimmer. Like, I think he composed that for Lion King too, and when he was composing for Pirates of the Caribbean, he went back for that, and he was like, yeah, this is badass, and he made some arrangements. He made it even more badass, and that's what the Pirates of the Caribbean theme came to be.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe he thought, okay, nobody will ever remember the sequel, so whatever. And it's really it's weird.
It's in multiple moments in the movie.
I think it's like
hear it
the theme
at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch it while you were watching, or did you know it beforehand?
I
knew it.
I caught it like 5-6 years ago when I was watching it, and I was like, is this Pirates of the Caribbean? And like, it just clicked on me that it's the same composer, so it might as well be.
I caught this when I was like 13, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah. And one other of the things that I liked is just I like everything about this. I like the romance. I like the story. I really like Kiara's character. I like the chemistry she has with Kobu. Like I said, like we all said, Kobu is one of my favorite characters. I think he's like my third favorite male character from Disney.
No.
Yeah, it's just this movie is really important for me. I just really like it, and it's I just lost my train of thought. It's higher on my rank on favorite movies than Lion King, but that is just nostalgia. That is just plain nostalgic. I know Lion King is like super superior, and like the original super superior. But I will just keep mentioning things. I just love it.
Okay.
And I'm biased. Yeah. Gina,
okay,
please.
If you come up with some other things while I'm talking, like, go ahead and say it. Like, that's for all of you guys. Okay, I have a lot of things. I basically love all of the movie. Like, besides the things I don't like, I basically love the rest. Like, there's not even like a point of comparison, because the good things I see in this movie just completely outweigh the bad. So for starters, I really enjoy the animation, and I think that one thing that sets this sequel apart from the others is that it has a lot of, how do you say, acting animation. Like,
yeah,
like there's this moment at the beginning, and this is where I noticed like how superior the animation is from other sequels. Is when Kiara is just going, she's still a cop, and she goes off to play, and Simba's like, don't go off the path I marked for you, and Nala starts talking, but while Nala is talking, you can still see Simba like trying to find Kiara, and he's moving his neck, he's moving his eyes, and you just see like concern in him, in just his body language. And I think that's something that no other sequel so far has had, because the animation being so cheap, it needs to be like very contained. So if the character is not talking, then it's basically gonna be static, maybe just blinking and not doing much else. So when I saw this, that Nala was the character speaking, but Simba was still doing things, and he was still reacting to his environment, I was like, wow, okay, a lot of thought and effort was put into this. Like, they went for it, and there's a lot of moments like that in the movie. Like, the eyes are so expressive. The body language is fantastic in the movie. Like, when Kobu is giving this real speech to himself, like, the range of emotions that go through his face, like, it's palpable, and I just feel it. And I really, really enjoy everything that the animation does. I think it's never going to be on par of The Lion King or the Disney the full-length Disney animated features. But this just might as well, like, it's almost there. If they had a little more budget, if they had a little more time, it could be there. It's just I don't know. The animation, I think, I just love it. The backgrounds are not the best, but I just have a lot of fun watching the characters move and react to each other. I like the new characters. I really like Nuka. Like, I think as a child, he was just annoying to me. Like, I didn't really care for Nuka, but as I grew up, I think he's a very sad character, and I think his death, for me, I felt his death. Like, I know, like, I think Erin said that maybe it doesn't land, but for me it did, because I guess I guess I can understand Nuka because he was just pushed aside by his youngest brother, and he was never, as he said, he was never given the chance. And like, I really like the little detail that they gave him of like he's always like covered in fleas, so he's always like eating himself out. Like that's not wrong. No, it's not he's just biting at itself like all the time, and like
just to clarify on the note about his death, what I meant was, I think his death really did hit. Like, it actually did make me really sad. And I think the reason it made me sad is because it didn't seem justified. Like, he didn't seem to deserve it.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely no. Definitely didn't deserve it. And that's really what makes it the more tragic.
But that is awesome that this sequel got there. They did that.
That's a very Shakespearean shit. Like, just trying to do your best and, like, not even failing, but dying in the attempt. That's very sad.
Does this make Nuka Mercutio?
No. No, because Mercutio wasn't as tragic. Mercutio...
Oh my gosh.
No, that's Shakespeare discourse for another podcast.
What is Brittany?
Brittany? I don't know. I leave that to you. Just think about it. I let you think about it. What?
No, she can't be.
Oh yeah, okay. What was I saying? No, stop it. We're not getting into Romeo and Juliet discourse right now. I'm sorry. Okay. You can think about it and come back to me.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I really like Nuka. I really like just the metaphor that the fleas. I don't know. I see the fleas that he has like as some kind of metaphor. Like he's always gonna be subpart, and it's always gonna be something like it's eating out of him.
That's so sad.
Yeah,
you're looking really deep into this.
As I said to Andy, I watched this movie for the last 20 years of my life. I watched this movie ever since I have a memory. So, yeah, I have 20 years of accumulated thoughts on this movie. So, yeah. My favorite... I do think my favorite part of the movie is the romance. I just really feel it. I think one of my favorite scenes is when Kobo and Kiara are lying on the grass and they're just stargazing. And you can, like... like Kiara's like, oh, look at that little bunny. And Kobo's like, oh, look, those look like two lions fighting to each other to death for a piece of meat. And like you can see like where his home life was so violent.
And he has like a smile on his face.
He's enjoying it. He's at the time of his life fighting themselves to death for a piece of meat.
What fun.
Is this his this is the shadow of a monster.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh, Erin, that's from the Scented Chris.
And it's hilarious.
It's
freaking hilarious.
Wow, amazing. I can't believe you just made that parallel.
Do you want to explain
an accurate
to people
comparison?
that don't know?
No, they should listen to the podcast.
Oh, okay.
You should listen to Enchanted Christmas and you'll understand.
Well, we just love our emo boys.
Yeah.
Talking
of emo boys, I think as Andy said, I really do enjoy this pairing because it's enemies to lovers for kids.
Yes, this is what introduced me to it.
It's how you introduce the children to what an enemies to lovers trope is, because I've seen some kind of discourse on Twitter mainly that's like, oh, enemies to lovers just means that they have this discussion once, and like that's not enemies to lovers. Enemies to lover needs to have like a big conflict, and these two characters being on opposite sides of that big conflict, like completely different ideologies or like just two opposing sides of any kind, and that's how you get enemies to lovers. So this is paint by the numbers enemies to lovers, but in a way that's easy for children to understand, and that is not as dramatic or angsty. Like it has its angsty parts, especially on Kobu's part, because he's definitely the most damaged. Because I mean, if you had Zero as a mother, like that really has to eat at you. And that scene where they're stargazing, and he's like, and Kiara tells him, "Oh, my father used to say that the great kings of the past watch us from the stars." And Kobo's like, "Do you think Scar is up there?" and they just stare at each other like, what? Like
we
they just
have
they
different
just
visions of the world.
like they feel like the awkward pause at that moment, and Kobo like realizes like, no, of course Scar's not up there. Like he was hated by everyone. So he has like, it's where this conflict in him first shows that it's very difficult for him to make peace with this basically legacy, not legacy, but this mission, this destiny that Scar and his mother just laid on him as a baby, basically.
Yeah, it's a really interesting scene when he's talking with Simba, and Simba sort of gives him a new perspective on Scar, because obviously Zira painted Scar as, you know, the fallen hero of their story, but Simba talks about how he was just consumed by bitterness and jealousy, and Kovu's open to hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that scene as well. I think like it really goes to show, I don't know, I just really like this movie. It just goes to show like how well written and how much care there was for these new characters, pretty much. And that scene with Kiara, he's like, he wasn't really my father, but he was still part of me. And like, you totally get it. Like, he was part of him because Zira basically fed him the Scar discourse all his life. So I think the way Simba feels like Mufasa's presence, I think Kobu kind of feels that from Scar, or used to feel that, or at least thinks he does.
And all his, can I say something? Kobu all his life, his whole personality has been around
Simba.
Simba, like the vengeance on Simba, and he's just like you say, he's a killing machine, and Scar, he's been just defined by this person that he barely knew, this lion he barely knew, and I think the first time that he's finding himself is because of Kiara, and that is just
my heart.
I am the softest for these kinds of stories. I'm not saying Kiara is the only reason he's changed, and
No.
I mean he does that by himself, but she helps him realize that.
Yeah, I think
And
She introduces him to a new ideology.
Yeah, because from the beginning you can see that Kobo doesn't really agree with Zira's point of view. He's just a child, so he's just believing anything like Zira tells him, but he kind of feels like something's off.
When Bitani, she's definitely not. I'm just saying that.
Okay, and when he gets reintroduced to Kiara, he kind of remembers that childhood innocence, I guess. I really like this kind of parallel. Like in the first Lion King, Simba and Nala have this little like thing where they kind of wrestle, and Nala always comes out on top, and that's how when they reunite years later, that's how Simba recognizes her. He's like she does the same thing, and he's like, oh, Nala. Like it's really fun, like visual storytelling, and I think they don't go full on this one, but they have this thing where Kiara and Kobo first meet, and they have this kind of like back and forth, like Kobo's trying to like chase her, and she just refuses to turn her back on him because that's what her dad told her. And once they reunite as grown-ups, they do the same thing, and Kobo says the same thing in both scenes. He's like, what are you doing? And that's how Kiara recognizes him. And the smile they give each other, like I love that scene. And what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Kobo kind of with that bond he had with Kiara when they were children, and reconnecting with her, he kind of starts getting that innocence back, so to speak. So it's really conflicted for him. And one thing we haven't mentioned is that Mufasa is the one like wanting to hook them up.
Oh yeah, because Rafiki just sees signs from the sky. Well, from Mufasa, and then he proceeds to like get Kiara and Kobo together. But Mufasa is the one who sent him all of that.
Yeah, he's like, get this together, and Rafiki's like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Do it. And Rafiki's like, okay, I gotta do it, but I just hope you know what you're doing. So basically Mufasa's idea is this, that by reconciling both sides, the war will be over and there will be peace. And you know, Mufasa's wife. I mean, Mufasa's wise. He's right.
Yeah.
And
Don't boo him. He's right.
so Rafiki acts like the matchmaker, and that's when they go to Upendi. And I really want to stop with Upendi because I think I found this new like fascination with that song very recently after I watched it for the podcast. Because just the idea of love being like an actual physical place that you can go once you're in love, and like the way Rafiki describes it, and like the second verse of the song is like, you better watch your step because the path is steep, and hold your breath because the water's steep, and it's a long way down, but falling's half the fun. And I just really like that. I think it's a really fun play on words and how it feels to fall in love. And I also really like that the fruit that there's in Upendi is called passion fruit, and I really just love the whole concept of Upendi and love being an actual place and the way he takes them there. And I really like this little bit of character animation that I hadn't noticed before. There's, as I said, there's these fruits that Rafiki gives them, and Kiara takes it in the first go. Like Rafiki just offers it to her, and she takes it, but Kobu refuses it. Kobu's like, no thanks, and he doesn't take it. But the second time he does, like basically the fruit gets stuck on Kobu's throat. Like he didn't want to, but it just got stuck on him, and then Kiara gives him a peck on the cheek, and then he can swallow it. And I think that's a very cute like visual metaphor for their relationship.
Oh my god!
Because like
you're
Kiara
really deep into this.
I mean, Kiara just falls like head over heels for him, and like no questions asked, because she doesn't see any evil in him. Mm-hmm. But Kobu is like reluctant to fall in love because of his plan and his mother and whatever. But basically it's Kiara's how do you say, stubbornness. Mm-hmm. And that he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go for it. And I don't know, maybe I am looking too deep into it, but I do like, it's like little detail that I caught this time around, and I just thought it was cute.
It makes me think of like, you know how people say you have to love yourself first before you can love someone else. Too.
For sure.
Like he just has so much hesitation because he has to figure out who he is and what he stands for before he can give himself to another.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good point.
So he has some issues he has to resolve. I think the relationship is really nice. I just really like the whole, and of course it reminds me of Raylo. I'm just gonna go out and say it. It has a lot of Raylo parallels, and Kobu has a lot of Ben Solo parallels, and
A lot of Zuko parallels.
Sira is basically Snoke, and Nuka is basically Hux, and that's The Lion King is just a sequel trilogy.
Who is Vitani? Phasma.
Yeah, she's badass.
It's so true.
And Simba's Luke.
The badass
Simba's
military
Luke.
commander.
Yeah. And Mufasa is basically the Force, because Mufasa is the one trying to have the match. He's the matchmaker. Like, he's the one saying like, oh, this needs to happen so there can be balance in the Pride Lands. And that's what the Force is trying to do with Kylo Ren and Ben. Kylo Ren and Rey.
So that makes Luke Rafiki.
I mean, I think Luke is Simba, right? Because he's the one refusing.
Yeah.
In the end, he comes around.
Yoda?
And in the end, he comes around.
Rafiki Yoda.
Rafik is Yoda.
Yeah, we said that. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Rafik is Yoda.
Awesome. That's the Star Wars reference for the episode. Like, there you go, kids.
The one we were tainting in the last episode.
Yeah, basically. I think there's just a lot of parallels, and not just with Raylo, with Sotara, like all these ships that involve like the emo kid with a dark past and a scar.
Oh, you guys, when you kept mentioning like talking about Kovu, I had to resist the urge to just say hashtag Ben Solo every time.
Yeah, he is basically Ben Solo, and like I wasn't joking. I think Sira and Snoke have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
With the butterfly thing,
with brainwashing and just making this little innocent kid into their weapon for evil because of their past and their upbringing and just their sheer power and potential. And so yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, but I just really like that parallel. I love Star Wars, and what you were saying about this metaphor of Kiara and Sira, and how it parallels Mufasa and Scar, and awesome. How the generational, forgiveness. That's very Star Wars as well. Like you can see, like as I mentioned also in the Aladdin King of Thieves episode, like the idea of not making the same mistakes as your parents and realizing how you can become them if you don't change your ways. Like that's very interesting to me, and that's why I love Star Wars, and that's why I love Lion King too, I think.
Oh yes, Star Wars, the only other thing that has a lore almost as expensive as
Lion King lore. Okay, there's a lot more. Like, okay, did you know? Okay, just a quick sidetrack. Did you know that there's a theory that Nala is Vitani's mother?
What?
Because they have blue eyes. Ugh.
I have never heard that theory.
Yeah. So the theory is that Scar basically, that to Nala, and Nala gave birth to Vitani, and of course Vitani was a reminder of the horrible things that happened to her. So once the outsiders were banished, they took Vitani with them. And that's a horrible theory, and I don't believe it for a second. But it's a theory that exists, and it's out there. You can Google it, and
I'm just imagining whatever horrible subreddit I would find this on.
Yeah,
you will find this on 2009 DeviantArt.
Yeah. Also, there's fan art of this.
Yeah,
because also there's this moment in the movie where Vitani is like, Nala, where's your precious daughter? And the people that bought this theory was like they latched onto this line that they thought this line was like making it canon, like, oh, why would Vitani be would have a grudge against Nala,
that and the scene in the Broadway musical that with Scar and Nala,
and it was also cut from the original Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, little side. Just to show you that the Lion King lore is very deep. It's very dark, and you can Google it, and it's very interesting. And we could have a whole podcast on it. Seriously, just Google it. So going back to what I like about the movie, I just like everything on it. The music is fantastic. The new characters are very well written, and they make a fine addition to the franchise. I should say. The romance is believable, and the romance is it's the heart of the movie, and without it, I think the movie would just fall apart. Mm-hmm. And I just really like the relationship between Kiara and Simba, and I like the whole idea of Simba learning his lesson through his daughter. Mm-hmm. That at the same time is a lesson that his father is trying to convey to them via Kiara. So it's this generational thing, like grandfather, granddaughter, and father, and it's really cute. I like that. And I think it's time to move on. I just love everything about this movie. Just quote me on that. So let's move on to the question. What's your favorite song out of all of them?
You know mine, so I think that's cheating.
I do, but the audience doesn't, so go ahead and say it.
Not One of Us, the Exile song.
Oh yeah, you already said that. Okay, Tami, what's your favorite song? He Lives in You. Erin?
Mine as well. He Lives in You, I think.
Oh, I think for me it's a tie between One of Us and We Are One. I think We Are One.
Oh, We Are One's really good.
We Are One, I think it's a lovely sequence. It's such a lovely sequence, and it just really presents you with this conflict that Kiara has, that she really wants to be herself. She wants to be who she is, but at the same time, she has the whole weight of the Pride Lands and the kingdom on her shoulders, and she's just a child. And she's kind of just beginning to get a grasp on her responsibilities as a queen, and she's not sure she's up for the task. So she just has this like very brief bridge on the song of the verse, but you can totally understand where she's coming from. Like, can I trust myself to do this right? Can people trust me to do it right? Like, who am I even? Like, am I just the queen of the Pride Lands, or like who am I like deep inside? And I think that's like an existential crisis. And she's like 5.
Yeah.
But I totally like get it, and that's what makes me empathize with her more. And as I was mentioning, there's this beautiful shot of Pride Rock, and a little also kind of trivia. Most of the times in this movie, you always see Pride Rock from the other side. Like in The Lion King, you only saw it from one side, and The Lion King 2 tends to just show Pride Rock from the other side. And this is one of those moments where Simba is looking up at the Pride Rock, and he just looks back down at Kiara, and he just sees this terrified look on her face. So he's just like, oh, don't worry. Once you get to that moment, we'll be there. And yeah, and I really like that moment. I think it's very sweet. The song is lovely. Mm-hmm. The tune is very like soothing, and I just want to hear it right now. Upendi is so fun. And yeah, sorry.
I heard it. Well, I read that they have this like the instrumental of the song on Animal Kingdom. If not on loop, I think it's on one of the parades, on one of the festivals or something. What? I've never been to Magic Kingdom, so I wouldn't know.
I have, but I never heard it.
Maybe it's just a new edition.
Maybe it's just urban legend. I don't know.
It was on the internet.
So yeah,
moving on,
please. Okay. So basically, in the segment, we're just gonna go one by one and give our thoughts on if this movie was an upgrade from the original or a downgrade. Not if it was better or worse, just that if it adds anything to the new one, or it's just unnecessary or whatever. Just what you guys think, Tami?
I think it did add to the Lion King lore. Like, it really did. It added new and good characters, and I guess with the whole, like what you said, the backstory of between Simba and Zira, like that obviously makes Simba's characterization make a lot more sense. I wish that was more apparent in the film, but you know, I'll take what I can get. So I do think it did add to the film, to the original film. It did add story elements, and I think for, like, you know, I don't know if it's for the better. I mean, it's there. It's just I'm not upset with the film. I'm very, like, I don't know, let down by it. So I guess I'm just gonna say I'm neutral on here. Like, I'm not sure if it made it any better, or I don't think it made it any worse.
All right. How about you, Erin? What do you think?
I mean, it's so hard to even compare the two, and I think that it is one of the best Disney direct-to-VHS sequels, and I don't think it really adds anything to the original story. I don't think it does anything so much for the original characters, but I do think that it is an enjoyable film in itself, and I'm glad it exists. I think that, you know, of the continuations of Disney stories, I think it's definitely one of the better ones, and I think the new characters are pretty good. But yeah, I wonder if maybe it would have been better off in sort of an anthology form. I realize that would like kind of detract from the stakes. I think people are interested in seeing, you know, Simba's legacy continued, but and Scar's legacy resolved, but and that pain resolved. So yeah, I guess maybe as I'm thinking about it and speaking out loud, I would say I think it does. I think it does sort of I don't know. I'm actually really torn. You know, I think it's good, and I think it's valuable. I think that Lion King is fine and well in itself without this. But for people who really love the characters and want to see more of them, I think it's a good, about as good as it gets as far as direct-to-video VHS sequels go.
All right. Awesome. How about you, Wendy?
I do think it's an upgrade on the overall story, on the legacy aspect, and yeah, like you said before, the original Lion King doesn't need any help. It holds perfectly on its own, and it's just a classic and iconic. But this is a fine edition, and I like that it exists. Yeah, I think it's an upgrade.
All right. For me, I do think that it is an upgrade in the sense that, as you guys just said, it adds to the story in the sense that you kind of see the future. You can see what happens after Simba's gone. Well, what happens then? And what happens then is that his daughter will take over, and at her side is this guy that came from a very dark past, but got some kind of redemption and found the light again. And you can try. I mean, it's fun for me to kind of try to picture what the future of the Pride Lands can be under Kiara and Kovu, and what they can learn and what they can do for for the animals. Yeah. And I do think that any movie that can get me to think about that and try to make me imagine the universe being expanded, and I think for me it's doing something right. And that's what I really like about this movie, that it continues on, but without taking back from the movie that originated, the way that Pocahontas 2 kind of does. That it does move the story forwards. Like, we know what happens with John Smith and Pocahontas, but the thing is that the thing that happens hurts the original one. And that's something that The Lion King 2 doesn't do. It shows us the future of the first movie, but in a way that it really, at least for me, makes me kind of want to see more and what comes after that. And yeah, and so in that sense, for me, it's very Star Wars-y and Game of Thrones-y. Like, it exists in this universe that has a past and has a present and has a future, and it's alive. And I really feel that. So I felt that. So I do think
it's nice to see Simba's grief come full circle, and for him, because in the first one, I guess you don't get the sense that he forgets Scar or that he got over the death of his father, but you sort of see that maybe he's finally gotten closure on it in this film, and that he's, I guess, learned from the experience and moved on.
Yeah, because those things take time, and we see the whole circle of
life, like accepting the lionesses, the outsider lionesses. It's really him, like, accepting the past and letting go of the grudge and the hurt. And I didn't mention this, but I really like that scene after he just accepted Kovu, and he has this nightmare. Simba has this nightmare where he's trying to hold on to his dad when he's about to die, but he gets caught by Scar, and so Scar doesn't let him get to his dad. His dad falls the way he does in real life, and he dies, and he turns back to see Scar, and he's turning into Kovu. And like that right there just shows all of Simba's residual issues with his father's death, and why he's so reluctant to let Kovu in, because he's afraid that he's just Scar 2.0. Yeah. And I really like that scene. I think it's a very clever way of showing that inner conflict within Simba. And awesome. Yeah. So that's it for me. Oh wait, we have this one thing of trivia. Do you know who wrote my lullaby?
Oh my god, that is so weird. Oh,
do you know who wrote my lullaby, guys?
Who wrote my lullaby?
You would never guess.
Who?
It's Joss Whedon.
Really?
Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the Avengers. Joss Whedon. He wrote that song, and not only did he write it, he got an Emmy nomination for it.
Damn.
That is the most random piece of trivia I've ever read in my life.
We were watching the movie, we were watching the credits, and then my lullaby, written by Joss Whedon, and I turned to Andy and I was like, Joss Whedon? And we were like, nah, it's not him. It's another Joss Whedon. But we read it on IMDb, it's the same one. He's the guy, he's the same guy.
Everything suddenly makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the gory parts, yeah.
That's gory.
That's Joss Whedon for you.
Oh, that's so random.
Yeah, so that's the last thing I wanted to throw out there before we finish the podcast. Okay, so final things, ratings. Erin, I don't know if you were prepared for this, but basically we tried to come up on the fly with a rating for the movie. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars rating. It's just like something that will really sum up what we feel about it. So Andy or Tami, do you have anything prepared for it?
I think Tami can start, and me, then you, and then
Way to throw me under the bus.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Because Tami always has clever ones. Belle's Magical World was Belle's Magical World is not so magical.
That's my best one. Okay, so
My best one was I give this 40 thieves out of 40
Okay.
for the Lani one. Okay, so Tami, do you have a rating?
now I feel pressured. Well, I did try to come up with. I feel bad, but like I was like, The Lion King 2 can be banished to the Outlands. I'm so sorry.
That's nice.
Oh, no, that's not. It's sad.
I know, but it was like
Okay.
I think it was just a big letdown. You know.
Okay, I see it. How about you, Andy?
My rating is the team behind The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride must be proud of The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride.
Oh my god, that was so bad.
That's
That was horrible.
That was a reach.
That was
horrible,
horrible.
though.
Okay, mine's cheesy. Okay, but I am biased. This movie just means a lot to me, so I will say that The Lion King 2 definitely lives in me.
Aw, that's sweet.
That's adorable.
Okay, you made me feel bad.
I'm sorry. Erin, do you have anything?
I think this film is a deception and a disgrace. I'm just kidding.
Good one. I mean,
Maybe it would
I
be
feel
better
bad for
after
it.
some passion fruit. I don't know.
Oh.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
Some
Great.
aphrodisiac, some nice dinner.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I can see it.
That was really well done.
If they had exploited Kobu's daddy's kink, maybe Erin would have been on board with it.
Oh my god.
Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Awesome. So that was The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. Thank you so much for listening. This was so much fun. Thank you guys.
This was a long one.
Once again, this was a long one. So once again, thank you, Erin, for joining us. We loved having you here. And whenever you or Nat or Shai want to come in, you're always welcome.
Of course. Lynn, once again, I'm so happy that you guys invited me, and we're kind of booked up with guests and stuff for the next couple months, but I will definitely see if we could get you guys on something sometime.
Oh, that would be the best.
We would
That would
love
be the
that.
best. Yeah, I would probably die. Okay.
I'm sure we'll collaborate again in the future.
Oh,
that sounds
thank you. I
good.
look forward to that. Erin, do you want to tell people where they can find you if they want to look for you on social media?
Sure, you can find me at Holocroning on Tumblr and Twitter. I'm not too active on either, but I'm at HOLOCRONING. And you can also find me podcasting at Metamashina with my two lovely co-hosts, Natasha and Cheyenne.
Awesome. Go listen to Metamashina. It's really, really good. For Two Division, you can find us on Twitter as 2divisionpod. And you can send us an email also to 2divisionpodcast@gmail.com with any questions, any suggestions, any reviews, or anything you want to say to us. As always, remember to leave an iTunes review and a rating because it really helps us a lot. And so I think that's it. You can find us on Spotify and everywhere else you get your podcast. So just look for us whenever you do. And once again, thank you, Erin. We were so honored to have you. And you guys want to say goodbye, Andy and Tami?
Goodbye, guys. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode, and see you on the next one.
The next one.
Yeah, bye guys. Bye guys. It's super fun, and I'm having just a great time with my girls, and I can't wait to explore more Disney sequels.
All right. You want to say goodbye, Erin?
I'll just say bye, everybody.
All right. So for me, that's it. Thank you guys so much, and goodbye. Bye.